The doctor's voice cut through the sterile hospital room like a blade. 2 mothers? This child needs a real family, not some experiment in social justice. Dr. Rebecca Lang didn't even glance up from the chart as she said it, her tone dripping with disdain in front of the pale 8-year-old boy hooked to monitors. Milani Thompson froze in the doorway, her hand still gripping Harlow's, the words slamming into her chest with the force of a truck. Their son Leo, the child they had fought years of paperwork and home studies to adopt legally, lay right there on that bed. And this woman had just reduced their entire family to a punchline. Harlow's fingers tightened around hers, but Milani could already feel the familiar panic rising, the one that whispered she had to fix this before it reached her father. They had driven 3 hours from their quiet suburb outside Chicago to this specialist clinic, because Leo's rare autoimmune flare had scared them both. Milani, a 34-year-old marketing director at a top firm, had always been the planner, the one who kept their life running smoothly while their relationship stayed hidden behind closed doors and careful lies. Harlow, the free-spirited graphic designer with the warm laugh that could melt any room, had begged her for years to come out, but Milani always found a reason not to. Her father, Judge Harlan Thompson, was a pillar of the old guard community, a man whose Sunday sermons at their conservative church still echoed the same values he had drilled into her since childhood. One whisper of her truth and the family name, the legacy, the connections that paid for Leo's treatments would crumble. Dr. Lang finally looked up, her expression shifting from irritation to mild surprise when she saw the 2 women standing there, matching gold bands glinting on their fingers. "You're the parents?" she asked, the word parents laced with skepticism. Milani stepped forward, voice steady despite the storm inside. "We're his legal guardians. Both of us." The doctor blinked once, twice, then forced a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, this changes things. Let's discuss his treatment plan." But the damage was already done. A nurse in the hallway had overheard everything, phone in hand, and Milani caught the quick glance toward the waiting room where other families sat. By the time they left with Leo stabilized and a new prescription in hand, the air between her and Harlow felt thicker than the Chicago humidity outside. That night back home, after Leo was asleep in his room filled with dinosaur posters and the adoption certificate framed on the wall, Milani poured 2 glasses of wine and stared at the city lights through the window. "She had no right," Harlow said softly, wrapping her arms around Milani from behind. The embrace felt like safety and danger all at once. Milani leaned into it for a moment, breathing in the familiar scent of Harlow's vanilla shampoo, but her mind was already racing ahead to the what-ifs. What if the video the nurse probably recorded hit social media? What if her sister Claire, who worked at the same hospital network, heard about it? What if her father called tomorrow demanding answers? She turned, kissing Harlow gently on the forehead, the kind of kiss that had once been their private promise of forever. "We can't let this blow up," she whispered. "Not yet." Harlow pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, hurt flickering there. "When is yet, Milani? Leo deserves both his moms without shame." Milani had no answer. Only the growing knot in her stomach that told her the choice she had avoided for 8 years was finally coming for her whether she wanted it or not. The next morning the first text from Claire arrived. "Call me. Now." Milani's phone buzzed again and again while she made breakfast, each vibration another crack in the careful wall she had built. By the time she dialed her sister back, her hands were shaking. Claire's voice was clipped. "Dr. Lang is making rounds about the 2-mom situation in the break room. Someone recorded it. It's already circulating in the staff group chat. Dad's golf buddy is on the hospital board. Fix this before it reaches him." Milani hung up, the room spinning. She looked across the kitchen island at Harlow, who was helping Leo with his cereal, and for the first time the weight of every secret she had kept felt like it might crush them all. The video hit social media by lunchtime. Someone had blurred the child's face but left the audio crystal clear. Dr. Lang's voice booming across comment sections filled with outrage and support in equal measure. 2 mothers? This child needs a real family. The clip was only 43 seconds long, yet it spread like wildfire through their suburb's parent groups, the church directory, and worst of all, her father's law firm partners. Milani spent the afternoon fielding calls from concerned colleagues while Harlow stayed home with Leo, trying to keep his world normal. But normal was slipping away fast. That evening Milani drove to her parents' sprawling colonial home on the edge of town. The one with the American flag that had flown since she was a girl. Her father was waiting in his study, the same room where he had once grounded her for skipping youth group. "Explain this," he said without preamble, sliding his tablet across the desk. The paused video stared back at her. Milani sat down, heart hammering, and for a split second considered the lie she had rehearsed for years. Instead, the truth clawed its way out. "Harlow and I adopted him together, Dad. Legally. He's our son." The silence that followed was heavier than any courtroom verdict. Her mother, standing in the doorway with a dish towel twisted in her hands, let out a soft gasp. Her father leaned back, face unreadable. "You will end this nonsense immediately. The family name cannot survive this kind of scandal." Milani left that house with her mother's quiet tears and her father's final words ringing in her ears. "Choose wisely or choose alone." On the drive home she replayed every holiday, every graduation, every proud moment her father had stood beside her, and wondered how many of them had been conditional. When she walked through their front door, Harlow was waiting with open arms and a cup of tea. "How bad?" she asked. Milani collapsed against her, the tears she had held back all day finally breaking free. "He wants me to choose." Harlow stroked her hair, voice steady. "Then we fight together. For Leo. For us." But Milani could already feel the fracture lines forming. The fear that her love for Harlow might cost her the only family she had ever known. The next week brought more cracks. Claire showed up at their door unannounced, eyes red from lack of sleep. "The board is reviewing Dr. Lang, but they're also looking at our family donations. Dad's pulling strings to keep it quiet, but only if you make this disappear." Milani stared at her sister, the person who had once covered for her teenage curfew violations. "Disappear how?" Claire's answer was a whisper. "Tell people it was a misunderstanding. Say Leo is yours alone and Harlow is just a roommate. Sign something if you have to." The betrayal stung like salt in a wound. Harlow overheard from the hallway and stepped into the light, voice calm but edged with steel. "We're not erasing our family to protect your reputation, Claire." Her sister left without another word, but the damage was done. That night Milani and Harlow lay awake long after Leo was asleep, the space between them in bed feeling wider than the city outside. By the end of the month, the story had evolved from hospital gossip to local news. A reporter from the Chicago Tribune called Milani at work, asking for comment on the two-mom controversy. She hung up, but the damage was spreading. Her boss pulled her into a closed-door meeting and suggested she take a leave of absence until things calmed down. The same week Leo came home from school crying because a classmate had asked if he had two moms or two dads. Milani held him tight, promising everything would be okay, while inside she felt herself fracturing into pieces. Harlow tried to hold them together. She cooked Leo's favorite meals, planned quiet family movie nights, and at bedtime read stories with voices that made him laugh even on the worst days. But Milani saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her smiles didn't quite reach them anymore. One night after Leo was asleep, Harlow finally said what had been hanging between them. "I'm scared too, but running from this is killing us slower than facing it." Milani wanted to agree. She wanted to post the truth on her own social media, to stand in front of her father's church and claim her family without apology. Instead she whispered, "Just give me time." The disappointment on Harlow's face was worse than any argument. Then came the call from her mother. "Your father had a heart episode last night. The doctor says stress is a factor." The guilt landed like a physical blow. Milani drove to the hospital alone, leaving Harlow with Leo, and sat beside her father's bed while machines beeped in rhythm with his shallow breathing. When he woke, his first words were, "Promise me you'll do what's right for this family." She left without promising anything, but the weight of his words followed her home. That night she found Harlow on the back porch staring at the stars. "I can't lose them both," Milani said, voice breaking. Harlow turned, tears shining in her eyes. "And I can't keep pretending we're not enough." For the first time since the hospital incident, they didn't fall asleep in each other's arms. The following weekend her extended family gathered for her cousin's engagement party. Milani attended alone, claiming Harlow had a work deadline. The whispers started the moment she walked in. Aunt Linda pulled her aside near the dessert table. "We all saw the video, dear. Your father is devastated." Uncle Robert clapped her on the back a little too hard. "Fix it before the firm suffers." Each comment chipped away at the last of her resolve. When she finally escaped to the bathroom and locked the door, she stared at her reflection and realized she was becoming the very thing she feared. Someone who sacrificed love to protect reputation. The turning point arrived in the form of a certified letter from the hospital's legal department. Dr. Rebecca Lang was facing a formal complaint for patient discrimination, and Milani and Harlow were listed as key witnesses. The letter requested they appear at a hearing in 2 weeks. Harlow read it over breakfast and slid it across the table. "This is our chance to make it right." Milani stared at the paper until the words blurred. Appearing publicly would mean everything coming out. No more hiding. No more protecting her father. Leo looked up from his cereal, innocent eyes full of trust. "Mommy Milani, are you okay?" She forced a smile and nodded, but inside the war between who she was and who she was supposed to be had reached its breaking point. That afternoon she drove to her parents' house again. Her father was home from the hospital, sitting on the sun porch with a blanket over his knees. He didn't stand when she approached. "I know about the hearing," he said quietly. "If you testify, the firm loses 3 major clients. Your mother and I lose the respect we've spent 50 years earning." Milani knelt beside his chair, taking his hand the way she had as a little girl. "Dad, Leo is our son. Harlow is my partner. This is who I am." For the first time in her life she saw fear in her father's eyes. "Then you may have to choose which family you want." The words hung between them like a sentence. She left without hugging him goodbye. Back home Harlow was waiting with dinner on the table, and Leo already bathed. They ate in silence until Leo went to bed. Then Harlow spoke. "I love you enough to walk away if staying destroys you." Milani reached for her hand across the table, tears falling freely now. "Don't you dare. You're the only thing that feels real anymore." They held each other on the couch until the sky lightened, but the decision still loomed like a storm cloud. The week before the hearing, Claire called again. This time her voice was softer. "I saw Dad crying in his study last night. He's never cried in front of me. Whatever you decide, just know it's costing all of us." The guilt twisted deeper. That night Milani sat at her laptop drafting and deleting a statement 100 times. When she finally closed the computer, Harlow was already asleep. She watched her partner's peaceful face and wondered how much longer she could ask her to wait. The hearing room was smaller than Milani expected, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry bees. Dr. Lang sat at the far end of the table, looking smaller without her white coat. Milani and Harlow entered together, hands brushing but not holding. The panel of administrators asked questions about the incident, about Leo's care, about their legal status as parents. Each answer felt like stepping off a cliff. When it was Milani's turn to speak freely, the room went still. She looked at Harlow, drew strength from the steady love in her eyes, and said the words she had practiced in the mirror for weeks. "Leo has 2 mothers because love doesn't come with a quota. We adopted him together, we raise him together, and we will fight for him together." The words left her mouth and the world didn't end. But the fallout began immediately. By the time they reached the parking lot, her phone was exploding with missed calls from her father, her boss, and half the church directory. Harlow squeezed her hand in the car. "I'm so proud of you." Milani smiled through tears, but the victory felt fragile. That evening her mother showed up at their door alone. "Your father won't speak to me until this is resolved. He says you've chosen your path." The pain in her mother's voice mirrored the pain in Milani's chest. They talked for hours on the porch while Harlow kept Leo occupied inside. When her mother finally left, Milani felt as if she had lost a piece of herself she could never get back. The next morning the firm sent a termination email citing reputational risk. Milani read it at the kitchen table while Leo colored dinosaurs at her feet. Harlow wrapped her arms around her from behind. "We'll figure it out. We always do." But the bank account was already shrinking, the mortgage payment due in 2 weeks, and Leo's next specialist appointment loomed. That night Milani lay awake listening to Harlow's steady breathing, and wondered if truth was supposed to cost this much. Her sister Claire texted the following day. "Dad had another episode. He's asking for you. Milani drove to the hospital with her stomach in knots. Her father looked smaller in the bed, oxygen tubes in his nose. When she took his hand, he didn't pull away. I never thought my daughter would be the one to break this family, he whispered. The words hurt more than any firing. She left the room and cried in the hallway until Harlow arrived to drive her home. The final confrontation happened on a rainy Sunday afternoon 3 months after the hearing. Milani's parents had requested a family meeting at their house. She and Harlow arrived together, Leo staying with a trusted neighbor. Her father sat at the head of the dining table like a judge presiding over his own life. We've lost 3 clients. The church board asked me to step down from the finance committee. Your mother hasn't slept through the night in weeks. He looked at Harlow for the first time. This is what your choice has cost us. Milani felt every year of conditioning rise up inside her, the old urge to apologize, to fix, to choose them. But then she looked at Harlow, at the woman who had never asked her to be anyone but herself, and the answer became clear. I'm sorry for the pain, she said, voice steady. But I won't apologize for loving my family. Leo deserves both his mothers without shame, and I deserve to live without hiding. Her father's face hardened. Then we have nothing more to say. Her mother reached out, tears streaming, but her father shook his head. The door closed behind them with a finality that echoed through Milani's bones. In the car, Harlow took her hand. You did the bravest thing I've ever seen. Milani cried the whole way home, but when they walked through their front door and Leo ran to greet them with sticky hands and dinosaur stories, the pieces began to settle into something new. 6 months later, Milani had started her own small marketing firm from their dining room table. Clients came slowly at first, then steadily, drawn by the authenticity of her story. Leo's health stabilized, and the 3 of them built quiet traditions that no longer needed hiding. Her mother called sometimes in secret, voice full of longing, but her father remained silent. The family name endured, but Milani's heart had found a different kind of legacy. Harlow kissed her one evening on the same back porch where they had once argued, the city lights twinkling like stars that had finally aligned. Was it worth it? She asked softly. Milani pulled her close, breathing in the future they had fought for. Every single day. Was Milani right to choose truth over tradition? Or should she have protected her birth family at all costs?